When the world plunged into the abyss of World War II, it marked a turning point unlike any other in human history. From 1939 to 1945, the planet witnessed a scale of conflict, destruction, and transformation that redefined nations, ideologies, and the very course of the 20th century. But to understand the vast expanse of World War II, we must trace its roots, its battles, its leaders, its victims, and the enduring legacies that still echo through our world today. The seeds of the Second World War were sown in the ashes of the First. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, was intended to secure lasting peace, but instead brewed resentment, economic hardship, and political upheaval in Germany. A humiliated nation, stripped of its colonies, burdened by reparations, and plunged into the chaos of the Great Depression, Germany became fertile ground for extremism. Into this void stepped Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, promising to restore German pride and expand its living space. Meanwhile, the world watched uneasily as authoritarian regimes rose elsewhere. In Italy, Benito Mussolini preached the revival of Roman greatness through fascism. In Japan, militarists saw conquest as the only way to secure the resources needed for their burgeoning empire. And as the 1930s unfolded, these powers tested the resolve of the international community. Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931 and China in 1937. Italy attacked Ethiopia in 1935. Germany remilitarized the Rhineland, annexed Austria in the Anschluss of 1938, and dismembered Czechoslovakia after the infamous Munich Agreement. Appeasement failed. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland using a staged incident at Gleiwitz as a pretext. Britain and France declared war 2 days later. World War II had begun. What followed was a cascade of conquests that shocked the world. The German Wehrmacht unleashed the Blitzkrieg, Lightning War, a terrifying new doctrine combining speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. Poland fell in weeks. In April 1940, Denmark and Norway were occupied. By May, Hitler's army stormed through the Low Countries in France. The world watched in horror as the once mighty French army capitulated within 6 weeks. Britain now stood alone. But Britain, under Winston Churchill's defiant leadership, refused to yield. "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets." Churchill's words galvanized a battered people. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies through the summer of 1940, as the Royal Air Force, outnumbered but determined, repelled the Luftwaffe's relentless assaults. Hitler's dream of invading Britain, Operation Sea Lion, was abandoned, yet the war was far from confined to Europe. In 1941, the conflict became truly global. On June 22nd, Hitler broke the Nazi-Soviet pact and launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history against the Soviet Union. Millions of German soldiers surged eastward, inflicting horrific losses. But they underestimated the resilience of the Soviet people and the merciless Russian winter. The siege of Leningrad, the battle for Moscow, the brutal fighting at Stalingrad. These names became synonymous with sacrifice and tenacity. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, Imperial Japan sought to dominate Asia and the Pacific Islands. The world reeled on December 7, 1941, when Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor, crippling the U.S. Pacific Fleet. The United States, once determined to remain neutral, now entered the war with full force, declaring war on Japan and shortly after on Germany and Italy. The Allies, Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and now the United States, began the arduous process of coordination and mobilization. On every front, the war exacted a staggering human cost. Civilians were not spared. The Holocaust, the systematic genocide perpetrated by the Nazis, resulted in the murder of 6 million Jews and millions of others, Romani people, Slavs, disabled individuals, political dissidents, and more. Entire communities were erased. The world would later bear witness to the unimaginable horror of the concentration camps, the gas chambers, the mass graves. In the Pacific, Japanese forces swept through Southeast Asia, capturing the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies. Allied prisoners of war and civilians suffered in brutal conditions, enduring the Bataan Death March, forced labor, and atrocities like the Nanking Massacre. But the tide began to turn. In North Africa, British and Commonwealth forces under Montgomery clashed with Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, in fierce battles like El Alamein, halting Axis ambitions in Egypt. American and British forces landed in North Africa and then Sicily, driving into Italy, the so-called soft underbelly of Europe, leading to Mussolini's downfall. In the vast expanse of the Pacific, the Battle of Midway in June 1942 proved a pivotal moment. American codebreakers deciphered Japanese plans, allowing the U.S. Navy to ambush and destroy 4 Japanese carriers. The tide shifted as island-hopping campaigns brought Allied forces closer to Japan's shores, through bloody battles at Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union endured unimaginable suffering, yet mounted a stunning reversal at Stalingrad in 1943. 1 million Soviet soldiers and civilians died, but the German 6th Army was encircled and forced to surrender. From that moment, the Red Army began its relentless push westward, liberating vast swaths of territory. June 6, 1944, D-Day, became one of the most iconic days in modern history. Under the codename Operation Overlord, Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy. Soldiers from America, Britain, Canada, and other nations braved machine gun fire, mines, and bunkers to establish a foothold in Western Europe. From Normandy, the Allies advanced through France, liberating Paris in August. By 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing. Allied bombers devastated German cities. Soviet and Western Allied forces converged on Berlin. In a bunker beneath the ruins of his capital, Hitler took his own life. Germany surrendered unconditionally on May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. Yet the war was not over. In the Pacific, Japan refused to surrender despite crippling naval blockades and relentless bombing raids. Then came the dawn of a new, terrifying weapon. On August 6 and August 9, 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The cities were obliterated in moments. Tens of thousands died instantly. Countless more suffered from radiation sickness. Faced with devastation and the Soviet declaration of war, Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. World War II had claimed over 70 million lives, reshaped borders, and changed the balance of global power forever. Empires crumbled, new superpowers emerged. The United Nations was formed in hopes of preventing another global catastrophe. Europe was divided between the capitalist West and the communist East, setting the stage for the Cold War. Millions of displaced people struggled to rebuild their lives. Survivors of the Holocaust sought justice and refuge, many finding new homes in the newly created State of Israel. Former colonies in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East demanded independence, beginning the slow unraveling of imperial rule. The war's technological leaps, radar, jet engines, ballistic missiles, nuclear weapons, transformed warfare and ushered in an age of unprecedented existential threats. The moral reckoning that followed, through the Nuremberg trials and global human rights movements, challenged future generations to confront humanity's capacity for evil and its capacity for hope, resilience, and renewal. Today, monuments and memorials stand in silence on battlefields across Europe and the Pacific. Cemeteries hold the remains of the fallen, soldiers who never returned home. Museums safeguard the stories of survivors, the echoes of atrocities, the fragile records of courage in the face of tyranny. World War II is more than a chapter in a history book. It is a testament to the heights and depths of which humankind is capable. It reminds us that freedom must be defended, that hatred must be resisted, and that the cost of complacency is measured in lives lost and generations scarred. From the beaches of Normandy to the ruins of Hiroshima, from the ghettos of Warsaw to the jungles of Guadalcanal, the story of World War II lives on, not only in textbooks and documentaries, but in the collective memory of the world. It stands as a warning, a lesson, and a tribute to the millions who fought, suffered, and sacrificed so that we might live to remember.